Hi there, I'm Tischler, founder of the New Horizons Golf Approach. Today, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about how the spine tilt influences your golf swing. The spine tilts in two basic directions. The first one is what we call primary tilt. That's the type of tilt we have when we bend from the waist. The function of this primary tilt is to get us into a posture so that we can swing on an inclined plane as that club swings around us. If I get set up, push my hips back, bend from the waist, bend my knees, you can see I'm now in a posture where this club can swing around me up and down an inclined plane as I swing back down and through the ball. Secondary tilt is a type of tilt that bends to the side. We have primary tilt first, and then we have secondary tilt. The side bend helps us so that as our club is descending towards the ball, that we can approach the ball from the inside with the right angle of attack so that we can have solid contact and we can launch the ball at the right trajectory. If we look at when the secondary tilt happens, it can happen at varying different times in the golf swing. It can happen at address. We can get set up, establish our primary and secondary tilts at address. We can maintain that secondary tilt throughout the golf swing. Or, as we've seen with a lot of other systems, such as stack and tilt or McEgrady's lean and load, we can actually get set up in a way where we feel like we get the center of our shoulder rotation more over the ball at address. This actually gets my spine either leaning slightly forward or in a vertical attitude at address. If I just rotate my shoulders as I go to the top, I now, during the downswing, have to create some sort of a hip motion or hip slide motion that creates that secondary tilt during the downswing so I can have that right angle of attack as my club approaches the ball. If you set up your secondary tilt at address and you maintain that secondary tilt throughout the backswing, you notice all you have to do is swivel in posture, and that keeps that club approaching from the inside with the right angle attack. It's really a matter of choice. It comes down to what your swing technique is. If you want to be more of a pure rotary golfer, you need to establish both your primary and your secondary tilts at address, and you need to strive to maintain those throughout the golf swing up until the point you hit your full extension. Once you've reached your full extension, we release all postural angles up to the finish. Of course, there are other swing styles that add that secondary tilt in throughout the downswing or even at the transition. For example, if you've seen one of my videos on the pendulum action, you'll notice if I get set up and I keep my spine in a relatively vertical position at address, however from here I start to rock my weight shift back and forth so that I can get that pendulum action happening, you'll notice that when I get to the top of the backstroke here, that my spine actually looks like it's more leaning towards the target. Okay? My head has stayed counterbalanced, so it's anchoring that action. So if from here I go ahead and I let the weight rock back down, the pendulum swings down and through, we'll see by the time I get to the ball, I actually now have that secondary tilt as that club goes to the ball. So the pendulum swing is a simple example of a type of swing that has the spine actually swinging below the counterbalance point instead of us getting set up where we create that postural tilt and we maintain that postural tilt as we're swiveling. The swivel technique I showed you in another video, it actually utilizes the primary and secondary tilt at address and it maintains it throughout the golf swing. But we also have other actions such as a wheelhouse action. The wheelhouse action was the one where we get set up and we feel our shoulders winding up and unwinding on top of the pedestal that our legs and our torso create. In many wheelhouse actions we'll also see, such as the stack and tilt and the lean and load, we'll see that at address we get that sternum more over the ball. We use those shoulders to coil as we wind up in the backswing. As they begin to unwind, we find out that there's a forward motion of the hips that puts us into that secondary tilt attitude as that club approaches the ball. So once again, when the secondary tilt gets into the golf swing is more a matter of a choice. It can happen at address and be maintained throughout the swing. You can establish in the transition, or you can establish it during the delivery stage of the swing. The key is that you have to have secondary tilt somewhere in the golf swing. In theory, you can say it's easier to go ahead and set it up at address and maintain it. That way, there's less to coordinate during the transition and delivery stages of the swing. And of course, this is true to some degree. However, if you're good at performing the pendulum technique or wheelhouse technique that adds that secondary tilt in during the downward part of the swing, then that's okay. So keep in mind that we do have two spine angle tilts. We have primary tilt where we lean towards the ball. Again, this puts us into a position that allows us to swing efficiently on an inclined plane as that club goes around, back down through the ball. The secondary tilt we have is the side bend. And as we get set up, we want to make sure that we make a type of swing where as we come through the ball, we have the right degree of secondary tilt so that club can approach the ball from the inside and with the right angle attack so we can have solid contact and we can have proper launch.